Hey traders, Cody here with another recap of my Emini S&P 500 ES trading for Thursday, and actually a little bit of a disappointing result on the day because I lost a couple points. But even though I say it's disappointing in terms of that result, it also was what I consider a pretty good day because I followed my plan, I did what I wanted to do, and it just didn't work out. That edge didn't work out on this particular day, and I'm totally fine with that. And I think it's something that's important. Part of when I started doing these recaps, I wanted to share each day during the week, not just pick out my good days or my good trades, because that's kind of BS. It doesn't really give you a accurate look at the market. Sometimes, even if you do everything right, you're not going to have a winning day, and that is perfectly acceptable. It's important to understand when people say, I'm just aiming for a couple points a day, or that's, the target that somebody's trying to sell you on, that unless you have a good number of trades, unless you have like 20 or more trades in a day, it's difficult for an edge to always play out. If you have a very large edge, and we generally have a pretty large edge with the type of trading we do with our system, you don't necessarily need that many trades for most days things to play out, but sometimes you could take 2 or 3 or 4 good trades that fit, your system and would generally have a good expectancy of taking a number of times, and you just have a little bit of bad luck and they don't necessarily work out. But over the course of a week, over the course of a month, that edge is going to easily play out and you're going to have a lot of profit there. So, I only took a couple trades on the day. I'm happy with both of them. They both fit my plan, and they just didn't go into profit for me. I mean, this first short here, you can see that we had a lot of selling going on in that pre-market, and so I was really only interested in trying to find a good chance to sell. There wasn't really a great chance this thing pulled back into here because there wasn't any clearly defined level to trade off of, so I had to wait until we broke through the next level. The nice thing here is if this did continue to the downside, there was some potential here for a pretty big run. There was a pretty major level just below this, but at least 3-4 points potentially available there. So to lose 1.25 points, I'm not too worried about. And then we had another big move here that I traded a little bit more aggressively that just didn't follow through. And then we started just basically entering into a whipsawing environment, and I wasn't able to find much later on that I really liked as things just got kind of exhausted and the market chopped itself up. So it was one of those days without a whole lot to show for it. But I think that's a really important distinction, and I think most professional traders will tell you that they focus a little bit less on what the actual end result is on the day and more on what their performance was like, how well they followed their plan, how disciplined they were. And so for me, that's what I look at, and I traded this day well. I did everything according to my rules. And so I know that most days that's going to mean I'm going to have a good profitable day. And certainly over the course of a week, that edge is going to get a chance to play out and I'm going to do quite well. And when you start putting so much focus on, a daily result or giving yourself a hard time just because you lose a couple points, it just adds to that emotion that can make trading that much more difficult. So better to have kind of a longer term focus, a little bit more of a kind of wider vision on what you want to achieve. And then having a result like this or having a couple trades that were good trades that just didn't work out, no big deal. It's not something that will bother you at all. Aside from that, the other thing that's worth mentioning is you notice that today was very much a kind of a whipsaw day. Price was jumping aggressively downside, kind of out of nowhere, jumping aggressively the upside, again, kind of out of nowhere. And it's just very erratic early on. And with these sort of moves, it's easy to look at them and say, oh man, I missed a lot of potential there. But it's important to realize that sometimes the market, when it moves like this, it's really a statistically quite unlikely event. You don't usually see the market just turn on a dime like this instantly and change direction. It sometimes will do it once, but very rarely will do it, back and forth, because that's something that requires a lot of energy. Essentially, the market tends to exhaust itself. It often enters into periods of consolidation or ranging before it turns. So when I get these sort of situations, these sort of days, I try not to give myself too hard a time if I'm not able to fully take advantage, because I realize that because these are statistically sort of unlikely events, that if I sort of adapt my approach to take advantage of a scenario like this, and a day that's really jumpy and really whipsawed like this, that under normal market conditions, it would be difficult to trade well. So in many ways, you're better off just kind of being patient, kind of as I was after I got chopped a little bit, and I was just patient waiting for a good trade. And you're better off being patient, being disciplined, just really not trading at all if the market is in this sort of condition, rather than trying to get really, really aggressive to trade something that is statistically unlikely. And the same thing can apply sometimes to like a trending move that is really, really extreme, really, really strong. It's very tempting just to kind of hit that button, and you might do it, and it might work out for you. You might have a winning trade when you hit the button just because price is taking off. But what can happen is that because that's a bad trade, because it's kind of, you broke your discipline, you didn't really have a plan for it, and it ends up winning, it ends up reinforcing that sort of bad behavior, that rule-breaking behavior. And so in different days when the market isn't moving with quite those extremes, it's very easy to, again, break down in terms of that discipline and keep hitting that button. But because you're not in that sort of unusual market environment, things don't work out the same way, and you don't get those same wins. So you have to be really careful with that when you get into these sort of market situations that are moving in this sort of way, that you don't try to trade too aggressively, because it will come back and kind of catch up with you essentially. Those times that you break the discipline of your plan, especially when you actually get a winner out of it, can easily come back into many, many more losses down the road. So totally cool with this result. I'm just going to kind of come back tomorrow, mentally refreshed, hopefully have a little bit more normal price action, less whipsawed action, and hopefully some really good trades, because so far this week has been a really good one, and I'm still up a good number of points, and so should be able to probably pull up more than 10 points at least on the week by the end of tomorrow. So hopefully you guys had an okay day in this pretty whipsawed environment, and I will see you guys in the next recap.